Okay, here in the bowl, I have a combination of almond flour. Oh, let me turn the light on. Almond flour as well as oat fiber, some golden flaxseed, and I've also added in baking powder. So what this actually was a blend of flour that I have all DOF flour. So that's like my all dishing out flavor, but instead of flavor I put flour, so it's all dishing out flour. So anyway, I also have another low carb flour blend that I made. This is the one that I used for when I was trying to make my biscuits, but the biscuits didn't come out quite right, so I'm still playing around with this version. Then I have my all-purpose chocolate flour blend. This is what I made my most recent post video of when I made the chocolate bread. But what happened was, hold on a moment. Okay, so this is the bread slash cake that I made a couple of days ago. And so this has been 2 days ago, 3 days ago. But anyway, these are the last pieces here that are available. And as you can see, it's still bread-like texture, but it's still soft. Yeah, so you can kind of like see the soft buoyancy of the bread. There's still some bounce back to it, unlike most breads that would have just been made with all almond flour. It wouldn't have done that, at least not any of the ones that I've made in the past that consisted of all almond flour without the oat fiber and the other ingredients in there. So let me pull it apart, and you can see that the crumb did darken, and it did um well, I guess that's what I was getting ready to say would have been phrased wrong, but it became a little bit darker because when I first cut into it after it was made, it showed like it was light, like it was half done. So the color changes, and not only that, it stays moist. And in this form here, after it sits for a couple of hours or a day, it does seem more cake-like. So like I said before, you can call it a bread or you can call it a cake. So let's get back to the pumpkin version. Okay, so I already have my pumpkin in the bowl as well as one egg. Then I have my other ingredients here. I'll be adding in some vanilla, some Chinese 5-spice, as well as some pumpkin spice. And then I have brown sugar, or the brown Truvia, as well as some Bocha sweet. Now, I'm not going to add too much of the Truvia, even though it does melt down really well into breads and cakes and stuff that I make, but sometimes it has a habit of recrystallizing. So I don't want to really put too much of that in here. Therefore, I have the Bocha Sweet. When I'm making my baked goods, I always combine 2 to 3 different sweeteners, especially if I'm using allulose. And I may actually add some allulose into this. And I do that because overall, allulose alone is not sweet enough unless you use a whole bunch of it. Same thing goes with the Truvia. You have to use a lot of it, especially the brown one. So I combine to get that right amount of sweetness that I need without having to use a huge amount of sweetener in my baked goods. It's all about flavor for me and definitely about taste. And so I bring that out by combining different products. Okay, let me finish. Okay, so the pumpkin is seasoned very well, all spiced up nicely. I mean, it has a really, really good taste to it. So because it's sweetened so perfectly in this form here, I don't want to lose any of that taste or sweetness when I add the flour. So I'll be adding the allulose to my flour blend. So I try not to add any more than 100 grams of a sweetener. So I already have 50 into the wet ingredients, the pumpkin. Oh, I've already gone over. Doggone it. Running my mouth. Let me take some of this out. If I can get it down to 55 without grabbing any flour. Maybe just a little bit more. Can I do it? Yes. Okay, so that'll be that. And allulose is actually, although it's a sweetener for baked goods, it helps keep things soft and moist, just like the oat fiber. I can't really say that about all oat fibers. All I know is that when I use the Modern Mountain oat fiber, it's just, it blows my mind. It fascinates me so much when my baked goods turn out great when I combine the almond flour with the oat fiber to get the perfect baked good, even when I do my breads and everything. So, moving on, let me get all of this mixed up, and then I'll add the puree to the dry. Okay, I have everything mixed up. I run into a slight issue because after tasting everything, I think because I had so much flour mixture and I didn't put enough allulose in there to really complement the puree that was sweetened. So I'm going to add in a little bit more powdered Bocha, probably about 20 grams should do it. So far this will be like 120 grams of sweetener in all that I have into this particular baked good that I'm making. Okay, so just as I added in hot water to the chocolate bread, instead of water, I'm going to be adding milk. And so I just heated up milk in the same bowl that I had the pumpkin stuff in. So it's basically like a little flavoring for the milk as well. So I'm going to be putting in a little bit of hot milk at a time as I stir because the dough is just so thick. And then that'll help melt the sweetener that I had to add into it as well. And also putting in a hot liquid into a cake mix actually helps it because then the cake doesn't have to go through that process of heating up because it already has some warmth to it from using the hot beverage that you use into the batter, if that makes sense. Okay, moving on. All right, so here's my batter. Still very, very thick, but that's okay. I could take a chance and experiment with this and add more hot milk, but I'm thinking this is fine as is. Time will tell, depending on how I bake up. So, let me get a pan prepared and get this in there and pop it into the oven. Okay, so I have my bread pan here. And this is the longest one I have. I can't remember the measurements. I'll find it from when I ordered it and get the measurements then and put that down in the descriptions below. Or then again, maybe, some of you may not have such a long pan, so just use what you have and just watch the time that it's baking. That's the best thing I can tell you. All right, let me pour the batter in. Oh, and I did add more hot milk to it, and I'll just adjust the recipe also in the descriptions for later. Okay, so it's all in there. I've already brought it over to my table and slapped it against the table a couple of times to get out any air bubbles. But because this batter is so thick, I ran a toothpick through it as well. So Now I'm just getting ready to bake it. Okay, so the bread is out of the oven and it's looking pretty good, you know, on the surface. Hopefully it looked just as well when I cut it open, which would be awesome. And then I'll give it a little bit of a taste. Okay, so this is how the bread came out. And that's how it's looking in the inside, just like bread. It kind of sunk in a bit on the sides. And I probably, well, it's more brown. It appears like it's burnt, but it's actually not. It's just darker, and then the lighting in my kitchen is just horrible. But anyway, it actually has a really good taste to it. I didn't think it was gonna be sweet enough, but it actually is. But you can always add an extra layer of sweetener to this, or sweetness is basically what I was trying to say, by putting an icing on here. So I think I want to make like a maple white chocolate icing with some of the Bocha sweet and butter. So let me see how I'm going to work that out, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I have my butter here. I have my heavy cream heating. There's my white chocolate. Now, instead of using brown sugar, because the Truvia would just recrystallize, and then I'll have some type of crunchiness going on within the icing, and I don't want that. So I'm going to use some brown sugar flavoring extract, some cinnamon, and then I have this maple syrup here. So, oh, great. That's what I want to see. Let me go ahead and add the butter. So it'll be 3 tablespoons of butter. Now, just in case it doesn't turn out as thick as I would like after I add the chips, then I'll add some of this organic vanilla powder, which is, it's actually been sweetened with stevia. So it's still a sugar-free vanilla flavoring. So I've added in the brown sugar extract, the cinnamon, the maple syrup's going in. Okay, so here's how my icing is looking. And what I'm doing is I'm letting it cool so that when I do pour it over the bread, it'll be warm and not hot. That way it won't just run all over the place. It'll actually stay on top of the bread better. Because I don't want to lose this, because I've sampled this and it tastes extremely good. So it will definitely complement the bread. So I don't want to lose any of that deliciousness. So I'm just going to let this continue to cool a bit. And once it gets thick enough, I'm just going to drizzle it over the bread. Okay, so here's my icing. And I believe it to be thick enough to pour on here where it'll stay. Some of it's still going to run off on the sides, but that's okay. I want a great deal of it to remain on the top. So, and I think I've achieved that. Now I actually had to cut my loaf down to fit this dish, so the other 3 over there on the plate. So it'll probably be a while before that sets. So I have these 3 slices. And since I have more, I'm just going to drape that across like so. And there we go. Let me get a fork and do a sampling. All right. Let's see what we have here. Oh, that is very nice. You know what? This reminds me of French toast. So we have a pumpkin bread, but because the crispiness or how the edges baked up, it's almost like how it's been fried in a pan to make French toast. So that's what we have. A delicious spiced pumpkin bread with a white chocolate and maple syrup icing. Well, thank you for joining me today for this edition of Dishing Out Flavor, where we made a pumpkin bread with white chocolate and maple syrup icing. I'll see you guys next time. Take care and God bless.